Hello everyone, welcome to the Volkman Herald. Alright, so I've been doing a little bit of research and it gets interesting, let me tell you. It gets very, very interesting. So since the beginning of this pandemic, it was so widespread on the news, and it seemed like they were taking this flu-like virus and completely blowing it out of proportion. Like, they were making such a huge deal about how this pandemic is like the worst pandemic that mankind has ever seen, but we really weren't seeing any proof of the fact, right? In fact, there's about 1 billion illnesses every year from zoonotic diseases, and about 1 million deaths occur each year. Now we're almost mid-July, so this virus has hit the United States for a good about 6 months now, and I think we just hit 500,000 deaths worldwide. So on the large scale of things, it really doesn't seem like the coronavirus is as having that large of an impact as the news media and people would like you to believe. So this little podcast today is going to be about how the coronavirus is a big conspiracy, or a ploy, if you will, to bring about the New World Order. And we have the proof right here. So you go to the UnitedNations.org, it talks about the Sustainable Development Agenda. And it's 17 goals that were adopted by all the UN member states in 2015 as part of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which set out a 15-year plan to achieve the goals. So 2020 needs to usher in a decade of ambitious action to deliver the goals by 2030. So realistically, when you look at all of these, like no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, it just goes on and on and on. And you read all of these, you're like, how in the world are you going to end poverty completely in 10 years? How are you going to make sure that no one is ever going to go hungry in 10 years? So really, it is an ambitious action to be able to deliver these goals by 2030. So we're going to talk about each and every single one of these 17 goals in depth a little bit. But for the first little video content, we're just going to focus on the first one, which is no poverty. And by the way, just because it's number one doesn't mean that this is their number one focus, or that zero hunger is their number two focus. Now, all of these, to be able to be accomplished by 2030, they all work hand in hand and are simultaneously in the works of being completed now. And when you read these articles, you'll see how everything is making so much sense in the world. When you think the United States itself is pushing for new reforms and putting out new policies in trade, whatever it may be, how we're like, oh yeah, America's doing great, right? We're actually getting our things together. But it's really the puppet behind these goals. They're really working toward it, and I'll prove some of that as we talk about no poverty here in a little bit. So let's just go right into the article. All right. So as I previously stated, the coronavirus is shaping a new world order. Life will never be the same. It's never going to go back to the same. The old norms, I guess you will say, we'll never get back to those after the coronavirus. So there are 5 pillars that this article highlights, and their plan on how they're going to completely abolish poverty. And health first, protecting people, economic response and recovery, macroeconomic response and multilateral collaboration, social cohesion and community resilience. All these articles, like at first you're like, how does that have anything to do with poverty today? Like how does health services and systems really affect poverty? So, I mean, I guess we'll go into it, right? We're going to talk a little bit about it. Now, it's interesting because I actually originally read each one of these articles in the beginning of the year in January, right before the huge pandemic crisis that we have on our hands. And none of these articles were tailored towards the coronavirus. So within like 3 or 4 months, so this is, when was it written? I believe it April 2020. So within a few months, these articles were completely rewritten in response to COVID-19. So that is just extraordinary when you think about it, because this is a 51-page article talking about abolishing poverty, and this is going to take a very long time to collaborate with the amount of resources, the people, the organizations, all writing their little part on putting it all into a actual document to be released to the public to show the scope or the outline of the 2030 goal to end all poverty. So it almost makes you think that either this was like pre-written and they were just waiting to release it, or it's just one crazy conspiracy theory, right? So what does health have to do with ending poverty? So when you think about it, ending poverty, the only way you do that is you really have to establish a new world currency, and that is what a lot of my topic or content on this little video is going to be about, is how they're going to usher in a new world currency completely right under our nose, where we don't suspect a thing, and the economic strain is going to be so terrifying and so hard that we're going to really welcome this new economic relief package, these stimulus packages. But in order to receive that, we have to be good sports, and we got to play by their rules, and we have to give up some of our freedoms in order to participate and have this universal income. I believe Nancy Pelosi a few months back was talking about it when they were talking about the first stimulus package. She mentions like, hey, maybe it's time we think about a universal income. So really you can see how this framework is really being pushed to all the nations around the world, and we think the American people are just like, oh yeah, our country is really doing something to help us, and really it's just to usher in this new world order. So one takeaway from the health that I got, basically it shifts to digital payments for governments, UN agencies, and the private sectors. So what does that mean? It basically means paper money and metallic currency is going to be completely obsolete. There's going to be a new digital currency, and if I remember right, it was back when the original stimulus bill, CARES Act, was being pushed through Congress. Nancy Pelosi up there again talked about universal income and how we need to shift towards a digital payment system to be able to make all of this work flawlessly and get the money where it needs. And we're like, yeah, they're really trying to do something for us. That's great. But really, this is all, again, the United Nations doing its part to usher in a new world currency without really stating that's what it is. We talk about social protection, right? So what is social protection? Social protection implies universal coverages for all services. So we're talking about services such as medical insurance, education, employment. This thus switches it to kind of a universalism society, where everyone will qualify for these programs. It doesn't matter how much money you make or what, because you're all going to be basically making the same amount of money, and you're all going to be contributing to a fund that is going to be used to implement all these coverages so that you can essentially have full coverage of everything. You don't have to worry about anything. Sounds great. A new world currency, right? But how is the economy going to recover from all of this? By protecting jobs, small and medium enterprises, and vulnerable workers in the informal economy. Whatever that means, right? So here's their agenda. So they're going to stimulate economic growth and recovery by mobilizing the Partnership for Action on a Green Economy that provides integrated support for green jobs, economic and environmental issues to plan an early response and recovery phase of the crisis. So again, this is just one way that it fits into one of the other Sustainable Development Goals, which I believe was sustainable cities and communities, affordable clean energy, a clean climate action, life on the land, life below water. It all ties into making Earth a greener place, so we're not so developed or so strongly reliant on fossil fuels that pollute everything around us. Again, that's their great plan to stimulate growth and recovery. Macroeconomic. Let's get down to this one. This is a great one. This is the one that I got the most from. Every other little pillar that we just went over, I got like maybe 1 or 2 points out of the entire topic, and this one got me. Like, I was like, oh man, that's a good point. Oh, that's a good point. Like, this is really showing like how a new world currency, a new world government is all coming into play. So macroeconomic response and multilateral collaboration. I gotta slow down a little bit. I'm getting so excited, right? So the global economy has entered the deepest economic recession since the Great Depression, with the possibility of a financial crisis. So they already know the economy is going to tank worldwide. It's done. I did a video on that earlier. I'm gonna probably post the link in the description below. It talks about specifically the United States economy and how it's crashing tremendously and going down real fast, and also how the world is as a whole is not doing any better. The entire world's in debt, and it's falling. Like over 50% for almost every single country, 50% debt ratio to the GDP. So it's actually crazy, and we see that. It talks about the continued spread of COVID-19 has in turn weakened countries' currencies, increasing volatility in the financial markets, and putting pressures on the highly dollarized banking systems of some countries. So it's leading up to this great suspense of like, all right, so hey, the dollar-based money system isn't working anymore. We're going to have to issue in a new world currency. All because the coronavirus now, now, mind you, there's a billion people affected with illness and communicable diseases every year, and about 1 million of those actually die. But we're not going to talk about how 1 million people die every year from what how do you call it? Zoonotic diseases, like animal-based diseases like the bird flu, SARS, MERS, like the coronavirus. We're not going to talk about that because this is going to be the worst pandemic, and we're going to hype this up so much that people are going to be in fear and stay inside, and we're gonna put so much economic strain on them that when we establish this new world currency or this new economic system, everyone's going to be so relieved and so happy for it, right? I think there has been, at this point, 500,000 deaths on the coronavirus so far this year worldwide. So when you think about it, there's been like 11 million people infected, 500,000 died. But on the grand scale of things, there's 1 billion people infected every year from these types of diseases, and 1 million people die. So on a grand scale of things, the coronavirus is not that huge of a deal as they're making it out to be. And that's just my personal opinion. Do I believe the coronavirus exists? Yes. Is it killing people? Yes. But is it getting way hyped up? Yes. Right? Let's see. Where? Okay. Multilateral regional collaboration on trade policies, connectivity, policy coordination, and environmental commons. So there it talks about a regional cooperation on trade policy to coordinate and harmonize trade measures that impact on supply chains and connectivity. So we talk about a new world, like a one world trade currency or a one world trade policy, to where everyone will be able to have a free trade. And if your country is in need of a good or product, a resource, they're going to provide opportunities to provide these through a pooled procurement of essential drugs and medical supplies. So, I mean, you could really take this an example for any resource or every resource available to any country in need. You'll be able to get from a pooled procurement. So basically, if you're manufacturing a good or product, the government can come take it and disperse it wherever it is needed. Let me check my message here real quick. Oh, it's just a TikTok video. All right. So that's kind of a big deal, right? You talk about free and open world trade. The only way that is ever going to work is if there is a one world trade currency. Again, setting the foundations for a one world government. Social cohesion and community resilience. This was interesting to me because I'm like, how is social cohesion and community resilience related to the end of poverty? I mean, you kind of like just come up with a few examples off the top of your head, and you're like, yeah, maybe that's what this article is going to be about. Completely not. It talks about how the pandemic will place considerable strains on social cohesion, magnifying existing fault lines and creating new ones. And we have certainly seen that, right? Protests in the nation, around the world, there's just riots and a bunch of, underlying issues that are now, being agitated because of the restrictions and implementation of the COVID response. So they're going to empower community resilience and participation by innovative community engagement through mass media, digital media, local arts, and culture will be pursued. So it's not are being pursued, these will be pursued. So again, we hear about it every day in the media, on the news. Coronavirus this, the pandemic is large. You have movie stars coming on TV and having interviews with news anchors saying, hey, we're all going to wear a mask, we're in this together, we're going to get through this. And that is to help, lessen the fear of the general public for the next step that they're going to do, which is this right here. This one took it for me, right, his nail on the head. So in designing responses for COVID-19, there will be risks of an opportunity, or unintended restrictions on public freedoms. Let's read that again. There'll be risks of opportunistic or unintended restrictions on public freedoms, threats on privacy, curtailment of free speech. We've seen that in America quite a bit, haven't we? An overreach of emergency powers. Oh, that's definitely, the president sending the National Guard on to for against the American people, and heavy-handed security responses. What happened in Minneapolis or Seattle? Things have just gotten completely out of hand with police brutality. That may undermine democracy and last longer than strictly necessary. So it's like, hey, it's not necessarily like this is going to be a one-time deal and we're going to be sorry about it. It's like, hey, we're going to put these implementations, that's the wrong word, we're going to respond to COVID-19 with these implications. And you know what? It does infringe on your rights, like having to wear a mask, all right? But when the need is no longer there, we're still going to make you do it, even though it's not necessary. It's all to help you remain submissive to the New World Order that they're trying to establish. And if you don't believe me at this point on how all this ties in, let's continue to scroll down here, and this article specifically says this is exactly what it is for. As they respond to the spread and impact of COVID-19, will be fundamental in laying the foundation for a fair and sustainable transition to a new social contract in the years ahead. Right there it states it. New World Order coming soon. So stay tuned. We'll talk more about how the New World Order is being implemented by all the 17 goals by the United Nations, and not necessarily that we can do anything about it, but just so that you're aware and can be better prepared for what's coming in the next decade. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Remember, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe. We'll put out more content for y'all, and leave a comment or two and I'll get back with you on that and help support this channel, I guess is kind of what I'm saying. It's just it's so much information to put out, and I try to make this video as short as possible. It looks like it's now 23 minutes. I was trying to make it 10 minutes. However, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and continue to follow me for more rich content that proves how the coronavirus is just a giant play to usher in the New World Order.